You are listening to Here Before, Here Now, an Arizona's Family Originals podcast.
Hey guys, Colton here with another episode of Here Before, Here Now. Thanks for dropping by. Hopefully you were able to check out the previous episode talking about how these mass layoffs were impacting federal workers with the Bureau of Indian Education. We know that's one of those facilities right here, pretty much in our own backyard. It's Albuquerque, New Mexico, but regionally it's pretty close with those layoffs. So if you have any other ideas or if you've been impacted, please feel free to reach out to me on my social media accounts, Facebook, Instagram, also Colton.Shone at azfamily.com. But today's episode, we do want to pivot and talk about a pretty exciting endeavor happening in the month of March. Scottsdale Ferrari Art Week is taking place March 20th through 23rd, and it's the inaugural event of this kind where they're going to really be focusing on contemporary native art. So I am excited to bring you my next guest. This is Thomas. Thank you so much, Thomas Marcus, otherwise known as Breeze. I was reading your bio online, and it said that you started out as sort of a graffiti artist. Thank you for being here. Tell me about yourself.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. And absolutely, I began my, public art career as a graffiti artist here in Phoenix. It was probably 30 years ago. And about 20 years ago, transitioned into more of the public art realm of creating culturally relevant murals while having a studio practice as well.
Yeah. So tell me about your upbringing. You're born and raised in the Valley, grew up on the Salt River Pima Indian Reservation.
Yeah. So born in Phoenix, went to school in Phoenix, and grew up kind of simultaneously on the Salt River community, which was an interesting experience, busing back and forth into Central Phoenix every single day. But I think that was also the inspiration in finding and discovering sort of the street art, graffiti art world, which has led me down this path to become a full-time artist, muralist, studio painter, and having that sort of, as Native folks, as Indigenous folks, the common saying that we have of walking in different worlds, right? Usually we say walking in two different worlds. And really, I feel like it's layered and we have multiple worlds that we have to walk in and different hats we have to wear. I definitely experienced that growing up in the Salt River community, as well as just being immersed into the Valley every single day.
You know, as Native people, obviously our people have come from a long line of artists. You've got people who've done pottery from thousands of years ago. We've got rug weavers. We've got people who make jewelry. What was that point for you where you decided, I want to continue on this legacy of creating and contributing art?
Yeah, that's a great question. And to what you just described, the long-standing history of jewelry making, pottery, carving, woven textiles, those go back generations upon generations. For myself, being a 2D painter, we don't necessarily have generations of 2D painters, studio painters, artists, or mural painters. But one of the connections that I found within doing public art was, well, I understood that our ancestors have been doing public art for many, many thousands of years. All you need to do is go to South Mountain and look at the petroglyphs on the rocks. And that's creating, I guess, in a sense, public art a long time ago, ancestral public art, because it was communicating in a way to different people viewing it. And I think nowadays, creating these public art murals is in the same way or a similar way, having that same sort of form of communication and just engaging with community. And it's really great. And I find my connection in that way.
That's a very interesting way to put that, because you're right. I mean, you go to some of these places and they have those petroglyphs that have been there for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And you're still doing that to this day in downtown Phoenix.
Right, absolutely. And it's important, I think, especially for me and a small handful of artists from the Salt River community, Gila River community, and specifically those two and the Tohono O'odham Nation, because here in the Sonoran Desert, here in the Phoenix Basin, ancestral lands, these are our ancestral lands, just like as up north, the T'enneh Hopi, those are their ancestral lands, as you well know, and et cetera, et cetera. But for here, us having such a long-standing history here, it's important, I think, for us to reintroduce ourselves in a very contemporary way, which is a reason why I think it's great that the Scottsdale Ferrari Art Week is focusing and highlighting on indigenous contemporary work.
Yeah. When you think about contemporary work, when it comes to Native artists, What are some of the things that come to mind? Obviously, you go to markets now, you still find some of the more traditional type of things, but there's like this emerging abundance of artists who want to pay homage to their ancestors and their culture, but also with a contemporary twist. What is that like? What are we seeing when we say that?
From my personal observation, I love seeing those who are still carrying on some of those older practices and the way that maybe that art form is done. For example, we have a shell etching artist from the Salt River community who happens to be a tribal councilman. His name is Jacob Butler. He sort of revived, him and a handful of others revived this technique that was used 1,000 years ago. Probably hadn't been used in so long, but he not only utilizes that technique but creates his own design work, etc. And also utilizing older motifs as well. And then outside of him, contemporary painters too. A good friend of mine, Dwayne Manuel, and outside of even my own communities, many amazing artists from all these communities we just talked about. Other painters, such as, I guess specifically if I'm thinking about 2D painters, you have Tony Abeda, who's participating in the Scottsdale Ferrari Art Week. You also have Steve Yazzie, who's from here, who's an amazing painter. There's just so much great work being produced out there. Chanupa Hanska Luger, Melissa Cody, and although I don't know if all of those individuals are going to be at Scottsdale Ferrari Art Week, it's amazing to see and hear their techniques, their perspectives, their longstanding histories with their own communities and tribal cultures. It's great.
So for you, were you always kind of artist minded when you were a kid? Because I have a 5-year-old now, and I swear to you, ever since he was 18 months, he always has had either crayon, chalk in his hand, drawing and creating works of art. And not to brag, but like you see what he does compared to the kids in his class. His teachers have said, "Wow, this kid is talented," and it's kind of like kind of almost like ADHD, where he just hyper focuses, and sometimes it becomes a huge blowout.
Sure.
With it's not right, it's not perfect, and you have to calm him down. I'm wondering if it was like that for you as a kid. Were you always like doing something, or did it come later in life?
Sure. Well, I always say that I've been drawing and creating work since I can remember. And a lot of that influence is growing up in a household, for me anyway, a group, family of artists in their own way, whether it was bead making or some sort of like, my grandmother was a seamstress, and being inspired by also just different pieces of work in the house, whether it was a painting or a basket, piece of pottery, and being surrounded by that. But I know from a very young age, I always loved art and loved creating art. And I think about high school is when I knew I was going to continue down this path, probably for life. That's a great story about your son, did you say?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm not lying. Like
That's
literally,
awesome.
he'll spend hours upon hours upon hours, and it's just it's incredible to see. And right now, he's not drawing anything like, you know, that's I don't know. I guess he'll draw like Mario and Ninja Turtles, and just to see the evolution of how things have come, it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I have a little artist in my house.
That's awesome.
So like I try to do my best to foster that, like I don't want to push it where it's like here make something new, or here's some new tools. And he's also painting now.
Wow.
And it's cool to see. So I was always wondering that having the artist brain, like what is it that makes itself like say I'm an artist? Because I don't have an artistic bone in my body. I don't know where he gets it from. His mom doesn't have one either. I mean,
Wow.
she's good. I mean, but like she doesn't do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's great that you recognize that early, and then you'll be able to foster that as he becomes older. I don't know. Some are just blessed with that gift to just do it, and to be, like you said, hyper focused and be able to just zone out in their own world. It's awesome.
We got those big tubs from Costco, those black boxes.
Sure.
And it's hard to like say, oh, let's keep this one, let's toss this one, because they're all so cool and they're all full. Like we've got like a couple of them where it's just like stacked, and
Wow.
I don't know what to do with them. So
That's cool.
Any advice would be appreciated. So with the murals that you do, I always have a question about like they're so beautiful. Depending on where they are, obviously the placement is important. But like, what's the message you're trying to portray when you make one, and which one is your most well known here in the Valley?
So let's see. I would say that well, to answer the first question, the I think the level of responsibility that I've become aware of for myself in creating the murals is to sort of have that ancestral tie and cultural tie where when I'm creating a piece, if I'm adding in symbolism or motifs from one of the Autumn communities, and or maybe it's related to sort of traditional narrative or traditional oral storytelling. I want to make sure that I'm constantly including our our cultural visibility within those murals. So when people come from the res, which is for us is not very far, just for
Mm-hmm.
Scottsdale, when they come into town, they can sort of see themselves reflected in these artworks. But also, being a public artist and creating all these public arts pieces of artwork, it is almost a gift for the community because art is so subjective and it becomes very personal for the viewer and they can take whatever they want from it. But the intention, though, back to your question, for me is really to have this level of responsibility to incorporate these long cultural standings and visual presence for us. Now, as far as a favorite or well known, I should say, good question. I try to keep track of all the tags I get on Instagram and things
Yeah.
like that. It's hard to say because I guess I've been at it so long. But the most recent one I guess I'll go with is I just did a beautiful mural inside the Scottsdale Museum of the West, and we had a big reception. So I've been tagged in that numerous times over the last
Yeah.
couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And a handful downtown, of course, in the Roosevelt district, which is known for its murals. I've been painting down there with other artist friends for 2 or 3 decades. I get tagged in on a lot of those murals as well, as far as just on Instagram and other social media. So it's great to see the love for it and the embracement of all these different murals and to see it expand so much. But yeah, I mean, I'm hoping and looking to do many more and see how many I got left because I'm not that young anymore. There's a lot of young mural painters out there that are in their 20s and they're so gung ho and determined and driven, and me, I'm I'm in my mid 40s and I'm starting to feel it when I'm climbing a ladder. I'm like, oh yeah, okay. I don't know if I want to be doing this for another 10, 20 years, but
Yeah.
we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things I want to bring up too, because you're an artist, obviously the huge topic that's been a lot discussed lately is artificial intelligence, AI, and its place in art. What are your thoughts on that? I actually interviewed an artist a few weeks ago about AI, and he was like, "Oh, I've always had AI in art because I'm American Indian," and I thought that was funny.
That's cool.
Yeah, I know that was funny.
Right on.
But like, I mean, what do you think about that? I mean, obviously, art's supposed to come from a place of passion or pain or love or feelings, and sometimes you see things, especially online, that it's AI, and it's like, wow, I can't believe that. It looks either real or so good.
It's I feel for me personally, I'm on the fence. It's very tricky because you do see some incredible things coming out of AI
Yeah.
now, but it is a little concerning. And I do like, I guess for me, I do like visually seeing the artist's hand in the work where you can see where they physically created it. And maybe that's me as an artist. And we notice each other's works. We can see the actual time and effort put into it, whether it's in certain technique or brushstroke or etc. With AI, it's AI. It's very strange. It's very almost foreign. It's so new, and there is some incredible things happening. I don't know how I feel about it yet, though. I'm just sort of like, I guess I'll wait and see how it pans out for the next couple of years. But I like the American, so that works for me.
I guess my question also is, where do you see art going with the usage of AI exploding?
Well, definitely, I think it's just going to become more and more popular, just the way technology evolves and the way we utilize technology in everyday life. And I feel like the way AI is evolving and growing and learning, we're going to see that sort of take over. And I can't predict the future, but I do see it being incorporated and utilized a lot more than it already has, and maybe even taking on a life of its own. Maybe I'm way off base with that, but I just feel like things are going to become a lot more. It might be easier for certain individuals to utilize the AI format, but and or just technology. But man, I think there's nothing better than a good classic drawing or pen and ink drawing from a person's hand. So yeah, we'll see. Maybe we'll have another conversation in 5 years and see where we're at with all that.
No, it's always it's very interesting because obviously a lot of Native American artwork and crafts are protected federally by the Native American Arts and Craft Act.
Absolutely.
So I'm wondering like how this will affect that or impact that? You know, curious.
Well, I've definitely seen a handful of artists, very, very few native artists start to utilize AI. And it's very cool to see what they can come up with. But you're right. There's also so many layers to this, not just even in the native indigenous art world, but just the art world in general. And those conversations are being had. Those concerns are being had. But
have you tried using AI for art and all that?
No, not really. No.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been to sort of these immersive museums in different parts of the country where you can kind of have fun and try it out, but I've never done it on my own for a project.
I couldn't. I'm afraid of AI, honestly. There are AI
Valid.
news anchors in China, so I think days are numbered. It's kind of scary, but
Ooh, man,
no. I'm just always curious about like technology and what it means for like the next wave of things.
Well, so maybe still related to technology. I'll give you an example for mural making, and I think a lot of people don't know that this is a thing. Maybe it's not AI, but the use of technology. I think we have such a large increase in numbers of people who paint murals because they're utilizing technology now where you can draw and do your mock-ups for a big wall on your iPad, and then you utilize some sort of projection, or there's even goggles now where you just wear them and then it maps everything out for you and you just go and basically trace it on.
Oh my gosh.
And it's so crazy and easy for young or new artists that are new to mural making. They just cut corners like that, and you're like, wow. And me, I'm grateful to have come from sort of the old school way of doing it, so I still do it the same way I do it. I'm not.
Yeah, we're gonna be the older people yelling at the clouds one day. Like,
yeah, you kids.
Right.
No, but I mean, I haven't really gone that far. I've used projection here and there just to save time. But I see so many artists. That's what they do, and they just dive into it. And I'm like, wow, that's awesome. But
I think I've seen that before downtown.
Yeah,
with one of them using.
I wonder though. I guess my concern with that. So we're talking about concerns with it. Is that going to become a crutch for the artist? Are they going to be able to? Will they be able to do it freehand and freestyle a piece, or are they always going to need the pieces of equipment to get something done?
Yeah,
and I see that happening. I'm a little curious to see how that's going to pan out.
Definitely. Wow. Okay, so let's talk about Scottsdale Ferrari Art Week really quickly.
Sure.
When, where is it happening, and where can people find you?
So Scottsdale Ferrari Art Week will be March 20th through the 23rd at, excuse me, I always want to say Bear Jackson, but at Westworld, where Bear Jackson is held. It'll be the first of its kind, large-scale international art fair. I'll be there painting live. I'll be doing a mural installation all 4 days, the 20th, 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. I will also have a booth with my studio representing my own artwork and people working the booth. Booth F13. So if you plan to attend, please stop by the booth, come see some of the fine art from my studio, but also come visit me at the site where I'll be doing a mural installation. And thank you to the people at Scottsdale Ferrari Art Week for making this all happen. I think the Valley is going to be introduced to a new type of art fair, and this is exactly the way it's promoted, but to an art fair that hasn't really been done in this way here in the Valley yet. They're very reminiscent of the art fairs that happen in Miami during Art Basel and Art Week, which is in December. Large scale, huge, massive booths, big build out walls and galleries, showcasing some top talent from around the world. And there's going to be plenty of national galleries, international galleries, but I love that the focus is partly on Indigenous contemporary. That's where I'll be.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. Well, Breeze, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
A really cool conversation.
Yeah.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of Here Before, Here Now. Drop me a line, but make sure you share, subscribe, and review. You can always reach out to me on my socials or colton.shone@azfamily.com. Until next time.
You are listening to Here Before, Here Now, an Arizona's Family Originals podcast.